Delighted to be recording this virtual business card today with Matt Falla, who's a managing partner of Evelyn Partners in Jersey. These virtual business cards are produced in partnership with PCD Club and STAK to share information about our community of members. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, David.
So it's terrific to talk to you today in this virtual business card. We're going to talk a little bit about your background, Evelyn Partners, and some of the trends that you see from the industry. So you've been a regular at PCD events over a number of years, but people who haven't had the chance to meet you, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your professional background and the journey you've been on to come to your position today.
Thank you, David. My background has been financial services since leaving school, essentially, which in the Channel Islands, you've got one of three options, and I was never much of a farmer or indeed much in the tourism industry either. So I went straight into finance. Started with RBS, then an element of travelling. I travelled around the world for a couple of years, lived in Australia for a bit, came back, worked for HSBC in a fund distribution role into the Middle East. So I got experience of right the way through the Middle East into Egypt and down then into Africa and Mauritius. Left HSBC and entered the world of private banking with Kleinwort Hambros, which was SG Hambros at the time I joined, and 15 years later, Kleinwort Hambros, which took me through private client work into intermediary banking, and finally to head up private banking in Guernsey. And then during the pandemic was approached by what was Smith & Williamson and is now Evelyn Partners to join and head up the business in Jersey, and joined in October 2020.
And it's very exciting times at Evelyn, isn't it? Because the span of the firm is very impressive, the competence across multiple different areas especially. And perhaps you could run across those so that people are more familiar.
Absolutely. I mean, Evelyn Partners is the name for the businesses that came together between Tilney and Smith & Williamson. So Evelyn Partners International is the Jersey business, and we work alongside our sister company, Evelyn Partners Channel Islands. The international part is investment management, and Channel Islands is tax, accountancy, and business advisory. The Evelyn Partners Group is incredibly strong. It's now the third largest wealth manager in the UK, with around 53 billion of assets under management, the sixth largest professional services business, and the only integrated wealth management and professional services business. I think what makes us different is the sheer scale of that business and the competency. We have over 3,000 staff. We're in 26 offices across the country and across into Ireland as well. But not only are we helping clients to manage the wealth they've made, we're also, through the professional services business, able to help them make that wealth as well, be it through startups and our R&D claiming capital allowances capabilities that can generate cash flow in the early days of a company, through into areas of professional services and business advisory, turnaround, employee benefits, right the way up to actually the exit of the business through our corporate finance team, which is Evelyn Partners Oaklands. So it's a very interesting business to be part of as the advisor to individuals of wealth.
So the scope of those conversations you can have with co-professionals now, trustees in Jersey or elsewhere, is just that more rich, isn't it, in nature, you know, the types of conversations you can have?
It starts very much with what you need rather here's what we do. So for example, we're helping trustees at the moment with their automatic exchange of information, reporting requirements through our technology team, who will actually take the data that comes out of their CRM platform and with our tax and technology experience, analyse that to make sure what's coming out is fit for purpose, not just it's in the right boxes. We're able to structure employee well-being plans and pension plans for local trust companies and businesses. So again, it starts with something that provides a service and services a need that company has, that then might lead into us helping them with their investment management. So it starts with, I think, a much nicer conversation as to what help do you need rather than here's what we've got.
And you mentioned there the network of offices across the UK. Are you seeing activity in certain parts of the UK as interesting, new trends, entrepreneurs creating wealth, or is there anything you're observing across the offices in the onshore?
I mean, there's a lot of commonality across the offices, and increasingly now we are dealing with individuals that are creating businesses that are either long-standing through those businesses and family-owned, and they need to adjust to the times and the current market conditions, or we're seeing new businesses come up. Our Salisbury office, for example, is incredibly strong in the landed estates space, and also equine. You know, if you want to know the lineage of a horse, just come to us, and we can tell you that through our experience and the nature of that office and how that's formed. But then we're also seeing a lot through that's moving into now carbon offset and carbon farming, and how does that work, and how are landed estates really structuring themselves for the future. And I think that's incredibly important. But across the whole of the network of offices, you know, we have clients with offshore needs. So not only in Jersey on the investment management side are we a manager, we're also a custodian for our 150 investment managers based in the United Kingdom that have clients with offshore needs. So we're not just a team here, we're a team that spans both locations.
And that might be clients still resident in the UK but wanting management outside the UK and non-dom, or it might be someone relocating into Jersey to become resident.
Completely. So I mean, our clients tend to be either residents of the island themselves, and not just the high net worth side, because we distribute our investment performance through local independent financial advisors on platforms. So
regular savers.
Exactly. So anyone can access the quality of that advice. Plus, we're dealing then with inward high net worth individuals and local high net worth individuals as well. And then we're dealing with trust companies and the structures that come through that. And indeed, increasingly now charities and companies that are generating cash flow as well, and excessive cash flow on that side. So actually, what we're doing, and again, for the UK part of the business, we're seeing clients who have offshore needs. And then internationally, because we distribute through IFAs, we're also seeing a flow of mandates coming through from international IFAs from the likes of Dubai, down in Australia, and even as far as sort of Cambodia, in terms of clients that have a UK nexus that want a consistent UK manager that's based in a tax efficient and tax neutral jurisdiction, that can stay with them irrespective of where their careers might take them.
No, very interesting. Have you noticed any trends in the relocation into Jersey through the pandemic? You know, work from home kind of released a lot of people to realise they could work from anywhere. Have you seen that filtering through into your business in terms of, you know, more people considering relocation options and looking at Jersey?
Very much so, and I think it's consistent with Guernsey as well, that there's an exciting move. I think historically it's pretty fair to say that Jersey would have attracted individuals who had grown and built and then exited a business and were now considering retirement in somewhere lovely. And actually maybe tax was up there in terms of the savings they could make compared to living elsewhere. As we've seen now through the pandemic, and how now with the general drive towards well-being, actually where you're living is incredibly important to you, and you don't want to make sacrifices in terms of that quality just to get a slightly lower tax bill. So I think what we are seeing now through the pandemic, we've seen where you're based, what you have access to, how you can operate if that ever happens again, God forbid, as being incredibly important, where you have access into other areas, and can you have your family living with you. So now I would say that actually the tax element is probably fourth or fifth on the list of the drivers as to where individuals of wealth are looking to relocate. And generally what we're seeing now is those individuals that are relocating are maybe serial entrepreneurs. They have created one or two very lucrative business opportunities, and actually they're now basing themselves somewhere. And the ecosystem that you see in the islands is so strong to actually support that. So a lot of what we try and do as a business is not just our day-to-day investment management, it's bringing people together within our network who we know have common interests. And the island is incredibly well connected, but actually to integrate into that can sometimes need a little bit of assistance. So a lot of what we do maybe doesn't have any direct input on what we do as a business day to day, but it's creating connections that will help the island and indeed our clients.
And just looking at managing money for trustees, I mean, what are some of the specific competencies do you think that the Evelyn business leads on that is attractive to trustees appointing as manager over trust assets?
Yeah, it's a very good point, and there is a distinction. I mean, there'll be different parties in trust relationships that will have maybe different drivers to what they need. The life interest of a trust may need will obviously need the income. You'll have the beneficiaries that are looking at the capital side. So there's a balance between capital growth and income generation. The trustees themselves have their own responsibilities to ensure under the laws that those monies are managed in the best possible way. And as we have seen, different asset classes come into that mix at different times. Trustees also are fulfilling their regulatory obligations by independent analysis of portfolio returns. And that information is very powerful, but also there is a case where maybe too much information can also lead to decisions being made that maybe will just adjust how those returns look at over the longer term. So I think it is fantastic, and it's right that investment managers' feet are held to the fire in terms of the comparators that we see in the marketplace. I think what we have to be careful of as investors is that we don't move too quickly in terms of where actually we might see ourselves. But the trustee market is incredibly important for us. Ultimately, it comes down to the same thing as we see with the individual market, which is about communication and relationship. Incredibly important as we find ourselves in times such as these.
And with these dynastic long-term structures, you see the next gen coming through as beneficiaries, getting increasingly involved in the structures. There's this transition of wealth that naturally occurs through the longevity of the structure. Is that something you see? And how do you see these next gen clients as being different to those who've gone before? What do you see as the characteristics?
They're all individual, which is there is no one common characteristic. I think what we're seeing is a matching of the needs of the next generation coming through much more to the sort of ESG principles and the doing good with the money and the impact of money. I think you'll have different degrees of beneficiaries who want to be involved or not be involved. A lot of what we are looking to do and continue to do is the education of the next generation. You know, actually investing in something is, you can choose one thing with impact, you can choose one thing that's already green, you can choose how to facilitate your charitable giving and philanthropic events and activities. So I think for us it's education. It's helping to work with trustees to communicate that through to the next generation, and indeed educate the next generation of trustees coming through as well in actually how money can be managed and the impact it can have.
We were talking to a trustee firm yesterday who was saying the importance of bringing through talent in their business to make sure that beneficiaries or the next generation have a professional counterpart. And I guess it's the same in your business, isn't it? It's about marrying up the client with the team that they want to see in front of them, who understands them, and building that long-term relationship.
Very much so. I mean, we've got different horses for different courses, different people who will and it is a very personal relationship. And I think, you know, Evelyn is again unique, and Evelyn Partners is again unique in the fact is that we don't have a chief investment officer. We have a chief market strategist that lays out the way the world is looking to him at that and her at that point in time. And what we also then have is investment managers who are not just managing money, but are also analysts as well for stocks and sectors. So actually, if we do have people coming along that have a specific interest and clients with a specific interest in one area, it's a lot easier to match them with someone, for example, who has an interest and analyzes data centers. So that's very, very important. I think as well for us as an industry, we need to adapt to the next generation of professional advisors coming through. Arguably, when I started out in banking, finance and investment management, you maybe would gravitate towards a lunch or a drinks event. There would be something. I think now we are seeing, and this is a generalization, but a generation coming through that care much more about what they're doing, you know, for their business, what activities they're doing in the local community, and maybe their fitness and well-being, than maybe us with grey hair ever probably did. So.
And just, you mentioned on the charitable and philanthropic side, is that managing money for Jersey registered structures or UK registered charities that want a different style of management? I mean, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about the charitable proposition.
Yeah, I mean, it's across both, although predominantly more, I think for me, the charitable side is how do we facilitate charitable giving? How do we make it as easy as possible?
Encourage clients,
and what we have designed and about to sort of come in the new year is the ability for our clients to say, okay, I'd like to give a certain amount to charity from the growth in my portfolio. It's a lot easier to give from growth than it is maybe from capital, just psychologically. But I think so we can say, okay, 10% of the growth will go to charity. And we as an organisation will seek to match that with a fee reduction as well to boost that. And then if the client says, actually, it's X charity, then we'll pay it to X charity. But if they say, I wanted to look at a cause, I want to look at homelessness, then we'll work with local organisations that can help distribute the money down in a more discretionary manner to those charities that need it. So I think for me, there is a huge willingness to do more and to be more philanthropic and charitable. What we need to do is remove the friction that can sometimes be in place and generate that. Also, when we are managing money for local charities, we're going to see how we can do that in the most cost-effective way, and also look at how we can redistribute some of the fees that we would charge back to the charity in a specific project. So one at the moment we're looking at is where we could distribute back into the charity to then contribute directly to the projects that they're doing through the fees that we charge.
And just looking at the offshore IFA market you mentioned before, I mean, what do you see as some differences there between the relationship you have with them and trustees? I mean, the offshore IFAs are dealing perhaps with expat clients who are sterling denominated, have nest eggs, need to make sure those monies are managed properly. We're looking at the currency as sterling being devalued. There's lots of challenges, isn't there? What do you see that those kind of offshore IFA type clients are really challenging you on asking you for in the partnership?
I mean, generally, I would say that the offshore IFA space is much more about pension-like assets. So these are longer-term viewed assets where arguably the shorter-term fluctuations we see based by geopolitics or economics don't have as great an impact as you might see within a trust mandate, which actually is generational wealth, but still with I'd say, a much keener eye on the sort of performance iterations that you might see on a year-to-year basis. So you probably see less movement, I would say, for us as well, the direct IFA business is very much through platforms. So we are one step removed from the end client. And I think that therefore our relationship is directly with the IFA and trying to explain why we are positioned in the way we're positioned. And what is probably very easy for managers to consider doing at the moment is changing their style based on the overarching economic conditions. We are a quality growth manager. We are predominantly UK biased. Now that will have benefits during certain market cycles and will suffer as well during others. But I think it is important to remain close to what you believe you are good at.
Do you tend to go through funds, through passive strategy? I mean, it's obviously bespoke and tailored, but is there a sort of house style that adheres to some of those investment management approaches?
It would really depend upon the size of mandate for a client. Now, we will look at funded solutions, direct solutions, or a blend of those. There are certain areas where we don't think we can add value by direct stock picking, so we're going to choose a fund and we're going to look at the best that fund manager can offer. Similarly, now the growth in passive strategies, again, gives us an opportunity, and we're launching an MPS or a model portfolio service through that. Similar in the sustainable world. We launched a Jersey version of the sustainable models that the organisation's been running for 10 years. So in that space, it's taking the best of the group and then the best of the external market to match. But in terms of the actual how we manage money, it comes down to a client's choice as much as us dictating. A large part of our mandates, as you can imagine, are running to models, but we also have the ability to be bespoke. And that's bespoke to take into consideration the mandates that clients might have elsewhere or their other assets. So we're stripping out for someone with a large commercial property portfolio. Outside of a portfolio, we wouldn't have that exposure as much in there. Similarly, we are just building a large REIT exposure for a client who wants to gain exposure to commercial property and real estate through that.
Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty out there in markets, clients looking at following the news cycle. There's a lot of fear out there. I guess it's paramount importance at that time to be just communicating with clients, reassuring, giving information about how you see the world. I mean, do you find that this climate, this backdrop of uncertainty means you have to really be reaching out to clients more frequently to give them that kind of comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I would say that in advance of us chatting, I was trying to think of when a time in the last 2 decades has not been uncertain.
Yes.
And I think there is this sort of feeling that at some point we're going to get to normality. But what is normality? I think our role as managers, and it's not just investment managers, invariably you're aiming to become a trusted advisor to a client who will ask you as much about their investment management as they might about their trust and their commercial activities. But it's about being very proactive. There is, I think, sort of an inherent human bias to, when times are tough, to sort of just block it out and put your head in the sand. And our clients are expecting us to be on the phone, to be contacting, to be visiting them, and to give some sort of steer through what we're seeing at the moment as much as we can, because these are continually uncertain times with geopolitical issues, inflation, monetary policy, and an economy and a world that is more connected than it's ever been. So an event in one part of the world will affect the economy in another very, very clearly. But it's about building a relationship that isn't just there for the good times, it's there when actually times are challenging, and we can communicate that and be available.
Do clients access information through apps, platforms, like all of that kind of technology overlay, I imagine, goes on? I guess that gives people at their fingertips who want it.
It's choice.
Yeah.
It's choice. And it does. It reminds me, I was at an event recently with a travel agent. And arguably travel agents in the last sort of 10 years have become quite challenged with online abilities to access and book holidays. Yet the pandemic really reinforced why having someone you could ring up and say, my flight to wherever's just been cancelled is vital. And I think it's the same, the apps are a necessity. The online platform, the portals are a necessity, but nothing will replace being able to pick up the phone to someone and go, what's going on? How do you see this? And that is vital. And the activity we see over the past week to 10 days, you expect to see a natural ratcheting up of pure telephone conversations and going out and meeting people, because investing is incredibly emotive. It is, quite a visceral thing to see money drop. And as we know psychologically, the pain of a loss, you have to go double on a gain to offset that loss. And we have to be conscious that we're not just investing to a model, we're investing people's savings. And that's vitally important.
And you're a regular visitor to London, not only to see colleagues, but also external intermediaries. I mean, what kind of referrals do you find come from partners in London from the variety of firms that are there?
I think they're varied.
Yeah.
We have individuals that are considering a move to Jersey and are looking for either someone within the tax side of our business who can help structure their affairs in advance of moving over. What is unique about Evelyn Partners Channel Islands, our sister company, is the fact that our tax advisors on the ground can give both UK, Jersey, Guernsey and Isle of Man advice, whereas other firms maybe will have partners specialising in each part. So that immediately is a cost saving for clients that have more varied asset needs and wealth needs. It can be people, clients who appreciate that someone is mobile, someone will come and travel and will come and visit them where they're living rather than just corresponding by phone or email. So there's a varied reason. It comes down to advisors matching us as a firm and the way that we approach things and the wider services that we have. I'm very happy when we're working with a trust company to not only provide a portfolio, but also look at how we wrap in an annual tax advice and accountancy services into that one price. So actually trying to find that value and building on our other services, I think is important. So it depends very much so.
And you mentioned there the Isle of Man. I mean, what is it that you see in the Isle of Man? What is it that you're offering the professionals up there?
Yeah, so we don't have a presence, but we have a number of people within the group, both with our London office. One of my colleagues, Fergus Kahini, travels regularly across to the Isle of Man. Our business development team is actively there, but we have an environment there that is heavily fiduciary focused. Again, we have an ever decreasing number of organisations able to support, especially in the banking world. We're not a bank, but we know banks. I'm a lapsed banker, so I certainly do hark back to that at times. So again, it's about finding solutions maybe for trust companies that are struggling to establish accounts. But a lot of the time it's exactly the same needs and drivers that you'll have out of Isle of Man trustees that you will out of Jersey and Guernsey trustees. So yeah, it's another jurisdiction that we visit and try and extend what we do.
So this year has been a big year for the business with the rebrand and now going out, talking to people about this new exciting business. What have you got planned for the rest of the year? What are you looking forward to into 2023 in terms of initiatives and activities and travel?
Well, it's very much about brand awareness. I think it's incredibly important that our clients are aware of exactly what the business does do. And I think the rebrand to Evelyn Partners has given us the opportunity to do that. Our purpose is the power of good advice, and that's not investment advice, business. It's everything really that surrounds that. And I'll often get questions. People move into the island going, where's a good restaurant? And that's that connectivity that actually you're looking for. In terms of what we're rolling out, you'll see much more of our brand being visible. The colours immediately visible, which is fantastic, and the branding is incredibly strong. So just yesterday I was supporting the Jersey football team and their trip down to Italy with shirts to travel in. We have something going on at the airport at the moment with a banner out there, and we're going to see more and more advertising and more online that actually seeks to focus on the individual things we do and how they might be of interest. 2023 is a very interesting year. We are as a business, highly acquisitive, and you'll see that with the retiring IFA platform that's working through the UK at the moment. And I would hope to see those opportunities in terms of expanding the team, which is already happening. We've seen 50% growth in our investment management team, and our private client tax team now in Jersey is one of the largest in the island. But I think we're going to see more expansion as we look at probably mergers and acquisition capabilities within the islands as well.
And are you creating content and events for the intermediary audience? Are there sort of notable like podcasts or webcasts or live events that you're doing for intermediaries that they should be aware of and can get involved in?
Yeah, I'm trying to sort of express to the intermediary community the depth. What I want to do at some point in the next few months is almost like a trade fair where we bring the different parts of our business over, because business rates is incredibly important with the changes to business rates on commercial property in the UK. The R&D framework is very important. How we look at capital allowances if properties are being developed. So those capabilities, along with tech solutions and how you improve the productivity of businesses, I think are very important. So we're going to be running a series of face-to-face presentations, bringing personnel over. We have the sponsorship of the Jersey Farming Conference coming up in November, which is part of our patronage of Genuine Jersey. That will enable me to bring someone from our Salisbury office across to bridge the gap between the onshore farming and landed estates and the offshore farming market as well.
Fantastic. Well, also finally, Matt, I know that from social media that you've been an active proponent of talking about men's mental health. You've founded a group in Jersey. It'd be great to hear a little bit more about that and what you've got out and what you've learnt from that initiative.
Yeah, thank you. So I suffered and have suffered with my mental health for probably most of my life. And it was never a straight road to decline. It was a very bumpy one that ebbed and flowed, and I got quite used to living with it until probably 2018. I had a breakdown shortly after moving to Guernsey, and then another one in 2019, which was the culmination of, I think, years of a steady-ish decline in my mental health. And it was during that second period where I was actually off work for 4 months, I found a group in Guernsey called Man Club. And that was a space for men to meet, talk openly, without judgment, in a confidential space, which is quite difficult to find in an island as small as these can be at times. And it was the first time, despite having an incredibly close and supportive family and friendship group, that I was able to be honest about how I was feeling, and to gain elements of connection with the men in that room. And there were 30 men at that time in that room of all different ages, backgrounds, stories. No one's problems were greater than anyone else's, which again is an issue you can sometimes find, where it's like, well, I've got everything, I've got a great family, what have I got to warrant being worried about compared to Bob or anything else? And I think there is this misnomer that men don't like to talk. And actually, I think both men and women, when you're suffering like that, you get to learn to live with it. So actually, if mental health deteriorated to the point of crisis overnight, we'd all go and get help, I would say. You wake up one morning feeling desperate. This is not like I was yesterday. But because it's a series of cuts over a long period, you get used to wearing a mask that actually Matt is not the person who's depressed and anxious. Matt is the happy person. So I think then going to people closest to you and saying, I'm not that Matt, I'm this Matt, is a huge step to make. But arguably in a room of strangers, it's a lot easier. And so that first meeting was the first part of a number of other things I did at the time, you know, meditation, breathing, EMDR, and medication as well, gave me a platform to get better. That was vital. And that connection, that community that forms around that. So when I moved back to Jersey in late 2020, I thought, well, there's some amazing groups in Jersey, but I think that Man Club has a place here. And so, yeah, we've started that. And that the format of Man Club is now being considered by the likes of Macmillan with regards to men who are suffering or caring for or have lived through cancer. Because again, it's about creating a conversation and a connection around that. Into the workplace, you know, I think for me, a lot of the issues were the inability to be honest about how I was feeling, be authentic. And I think we have an opportunity now within all of work to give that to people, to say, actually, don't repress who you are. Don't leave who you are at the door at 9 o'clock and pick yourself back up like a backpacker at 5. You know, you come to work as you. And whether that's how you identify, how you're feeling, how you want to work, how you want to be treated, everything I think is vital. So the environment that we have at Evelyn Partners embraces flexibility. It gives people the opportunity to do that. And that I think is an absolute gift, because for me to be able to drop my kids at school and pick them up, to be able to work flexibly and do things, I think is vital. So
many congratulations on that initiative. It's vitally important that we can all talk and feel well. So no, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed chatting with you today. Exciting times for you. We look forward to sharing this interview with our members.
Thank you, David.